Next question for you, Shaye. How do you handle communication with the clients? This is a big deal because a lot of clients need to feel like their VA and them are in sync, on the same page. So how do you ensure that happens? What channels do you use or apps do you use for that?
Well, that's the first thing that I'd like to know about my client, what communication channel or tool he or she wants to use so as to establish a good communication. In order for us to build trust with our clients, especially because we are virtual assistants, we cannot physically be there and they cannot physically see what we're doing for them. So we have to communicate that. We have to tell them the progress, the opportunities, and the challenges that we're facing so as they would feel that even though we're not physically with them, we are working for them and with them. For me, if you cannot build a good communication with your client, then you have to start by knowing their preferred time, just check in. 2 to 3 times a week is good. But if not, if the client is very busy, then at least once a week you have to have like a sync meeting just to know where you're at, if you're still on the same page. And for that, the most common tools that I use are Slack, Skype. I've also been able to use WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger. So those are the tools that I commonly encounter with my clients, and those are the tools that they usually use.
No, that's great. That's exactly what we recommend too. I like Slack a lot. I've used WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, anything really to have that communication. And when I onboard a new client with a VA, one of the first questions I ask as well is, what's your preferred communication channel? And then what time? And I try to match up the VA's expectations of when they should be available to the client. Most VAs are working part-time. Most clients don't want a full-time VA. So it's important that you have some overlap in when you're available. So since all of our clients are in the US and all the VAs are in the Philippines, there's that 12-hour time difference. We want to make sure that there's an awareness of that. And I make sure I do that in every conversation I have with a client. But as a VA, you should always be thinking the same thing. When can you be available? Now, you don't want to be 24/7. You want to be clear about you don't really want to work weekends. Yes. You need to sleep. You have a life. You have kids, whatever it is you have. But you want to allocate a couple hours a day, every day, when it works for the client to be there if they have questions. If you have this laid out in the beginning, it will make communication much, much easier, right? And there's nothing that will ruin a relationship between a VA and a client as far as missed expectations because of lack of communication. So you got to get outside your comfort zone. You got to be a little brave, and you got to get out there and you got to communicate.
Yes, and it's very important that when you say that you're working at this time frame and when your client reaches out to you, you have to be very fast in responding because that's one way that they could tell that you're there for them.
Right. Yeah, within that window of time, when you tell them you're going to be working. If you aren't and they can't get a hold of you, now it happens once because an emergency is understandable. But after a couple times of trying to find you during that allocated time and they can't, they're not going to be able to trust you. And if you lose a client's trust, it's almost impossible to get it back.